In a rainy courtyard, two youths and an official stand ready for a duel. A silver-haired noble smirks, declaring his opponent's loss was decided from the start. The dark-haired commoner glares back, his expression hardening with quiet determination. An official signals the start of the battle with a sharp, decisive gesture. A supporter cheers for Weiss while another commands Lilith to watch his foe's humiliation. The battle ends with Weiss defeated, a desperate cry of his name echoing. An anguished close-up reveals him as Weiss Vincent, the infamous Villainess noble. This scene is from a video game, where Weiss loses everything to the protagonist Alan. The story reveals the player himself has died, his controller smashed on the floor. In a surprising twist, the deceased player was reincarnated as the villain Weiss. The first chapter begins outside a grand mansion, heralding his new villainous life. Down a dark, foreboding hallway, the sound of panic panting echoes ominously. A young woman's face is shown in close-up, tears of pure fear in her eyes. The reincarnated Weiss stands menacingly over a bound maid, holding a thin rod. His face is a mask of cruel amusement, a sinister smile playing on his lips. The perspective shifts to the maid's terrified eyes, peering from behind her hair. Her pupils are wide with fear as she looks up at her tormentor. The boy's expression shifts, showing the bound maid and his own internal confusion. His cruel facade shatters, replaced by a look of utter shock and bewilderment. The frightened maid asks who he is and where they are, her voice trembling. He recoils in panic, shouting his confusion internally while brandishing the rod defensively. He recalls just playing a game before finding himself with a tied-up woman. A bead of sweat forms on his temple as he tries to process the situation. The beautiful maid addresses him as Weiss-sama, asking if something is wrong. He is momentarily stunned by her incredible beauty, his mind racing to catch up. The name Weiss and her face spark a faint, unsettling sense of recognition. Catching his own reflection in a nearby mirror, the terrible truth begins to dawn. A wave of pure horror washes over him as he realizes he's become Weiss. He confirms that this is Weiss Vincent from the school game Noblesse Oblige. He remembers the game's cover art, a fantasy he had cleared many times before. Weiss was the primary antagonist, standing in the way of the protagonist, Alan. The original Weiss was the lowest kind of scum, relentlessly tormenting the weak. This villainous path led directly to his thorough defeat by the game's protagonist. Having lost everything, he became a desperate and corrupted servant of the Demon King. In the end, his tragic story concluded with him being used as a shield. The final image of his fate was a body riddled with holes, dead. His gaze falls on the tied-up girl, identifying her as the maid, Lilith Scarlet. He recalls with disgust that the original Weiss had a sadistic hobby of tormenting her. His face contorts in anguish as he questions why his predecessor did such things. His immediate instinct is to quickly untie the cute girl from her bonds. However, he hesitates, worried that a sudden change in behavior will seem suspicious. Torn, he awkwardly decides to stop for the day, unable to leave her like this. His eyes widen in alarm as he notices something on the maid's neck. He sees the dark bruises on Lilith's neck, a clear sign of past abuse. A wave of pity washes over him as he sees her trembling in fear. He raises his hand, deciding to try a secret skill he remembers from the game. With a shout, he casts Heal, his hands glowing with a warm, magical energy. The bruises vanish from her neck, and he internally celebrates his success. He remembers this healing magic was a hidden skill, usable from the very beginning. Flustered by his own act of kindness, he quickly tries to regain his composure. He awkwardly insists he was only practicing magic and not doing it for her. Lilith is momentarily stunned into silence, her face shadowed and unreadable. Her expression then melts into one of overwhelming, tearful gratitude for Weiss-sama. Smiling through her tears, she expresses her surprise that he could use healing magic. He is taken aback by her reaction, his face cast in shadow and confusion. He looks at Lilith, his heart heavy with guilt for his predecessor's actions. He offers a heartfelt apology for everything, and promises he won't do it anymore. Lilith can only stare back at him, her face a mask of utter puzzlement. Later, life continues at the Grand Vincent family mansion under a cloudy sky. In the dining hall, the butler Zevis serves Weiss his meal as he sits alone. Zevis stands tensely, holding the plate, his mind replaying past abusive encounters. He anticipates the usual outburst, where Weiss would throw the food to the floor. When Weiss calls his name, Zevis jumps, nervously answering his young master. Weiss admits he has been wrong, stating that treating food carelessly is unacceptable. He then quietly compliments the perfect seasoning of today's meal. The unexpected kindness leaves Zevis completely shattered, only able to utter his master's title. The butler is overcome with emotion, declaring himself extremely honored by such gracious words. Weiss observes the scene as two maids also express their joy over his change. He cynically wonders if they just think he is grown up, not realizing he's different. This leads him to reflect on how truly terrible the old Weiss must have been. He makes a silent vow to never make the poor, innocent girls sad again. His first act is to open a wardrobe to find a symbol of his past. He picks up a long riding crop, declaring his intention to dispose of it. He walks through the estate grounds, passing a crumbling structure with the cane. With newfound determination, he knows this is just the beginning. He must change more. His thoughts turn to the prestigious academy he is obligated to attend in a year. He recalls how his predecessor's reputation plummeted after losing a crucial combat test. A frantic memory reveals the original Weiss believed his entire future might have changed then. Understanding the gravity of this event, he knows he has no choice but to go for it. The cane is shown snapped in two, a symbolic act of breaking from the past. He vows to use all his strength to avoid his character's predetermined path to ruin. The reality of his vow sets in as he pants, completely exhausted from training. He slumps on a tree stump to catch his breath, a practiced sword resting beside him. A sharp voice calls his name, and he turns to see a figure striding toward him. The woman is Milk Avitos, an S-rank adventurer, who questions his seriousness. He pleads that he can no longer move and asks for a short break. Milk looks down at him, agreeing that he can take a proper rest. Her eyes glint menacingly as she adds a chilling condition to his break. Weiss can only grimace, sweating under the pressure of her unspoken threat. He recalls using his family's connections to hire this amazing but harsh teacher. The training under her watchful eye had been nothing short of hellish. He remembers asking her to train him without mercy, a request he now regrets. A flashback shows his younger self making the fateful request to train him mercilessly. A maid, Lilith, approaches him, calling his name to get his attention. She presents him with a white headband, an item he had requested from her. As he ties it, he asks what the character written on it means. With the diligence headband on, he declares he will do his best until he dies. The stakes are life and death, as Noblesse Oblige was a high-difficulty death game. He knows not a single second can be wasted, or it will result in death. He admits to himself that the training regimen is incredibly, brutally exhausting. Improving his basic physical fitness was a crucial foundation for his training. Under his instructor's watchful eye, he would start each day practicing forms. Afterward, he would run endlessly to build stamina, followed by hellish muscle training. From morning until night, he would swing his sword with all his might. He pushed himself to run faster, his face a mask of pure determination. The grueling cycle repeated itself over and over and over again. 2 weeks into this new regimen, the mansion stood silent under the moonlight. The butler Zevis presented a meal packed with protein, just as instructed. A more toned Weiss apologized to Zevis for being a burden. He understood that diet was just as important as recovery magic for training. Thanks to the various support Zevis provided, he could continue. Zevis's expression was one of quiet, steadfast resolve. The butler assured his young master that he could manage the extra work. 3 weeks later, a sweat-drenched Weiss reflected on his progress. At first, the training was so hellish that a single day felt like a month. But now, he was so absorbed that the sun set before he even knew it. Having grown used to physical training, Zevis decided to call a magic teacher. Exhausted by Milk Sensei's methods, Weiss hoped for a kind instructor. As he wondered what kind of teacher would arrive, a figure appeared in the doorway. A voice from the silhouette greeted Weiss-kun. The figure revealed herself to be the S-rank adventurer, Milk Avitas. Weiss collapsed in utter despair, screaming that it couldn't be her again. Milk smugly greeted him again, revealing she is also a master of magic. He desperately reminded Zevis that he had specifically requested a kind teacher. Milk overheard his plea for her to be gentle with him. With a chilling smile, she promised to teach him magic gently. She confidently told him to leave it to her, as she was a professional. Her gentle training began with him screaming while channeling magic under a waterfall. With tears of pain streaming down his face, he questioned her promised kindness. He lamented that this was even tougher than his sword training had been. Milk lectured that mana was essential for magic, and training was the only way to increase it. Her brutal instruction was for him to repeat the exercise every day until he passed out. A maid is seen running through the forest, a blur of motion. The result of the training was Weiss collapsing face first into a shallow stream. From that day on, his basic magic training continued with renewed intensity. Practical training with wooden swords also began, pitting him against his instructor. He was easily struck down during a clumsy and desperate attack. His instructor pointed out that he was still full of openings in his form. Lilith immediately rushed to his side, casting a healing spell on his wounds. He thanked her for her help as she encouraged him to do his best. His face smudged with dirt, Weiss pondered a strange development within himself. He questioned how a person as lazy as he used to be was now shadowboxing with such fierce, unwavering determination. He ran through the forest, his body wreathed in an aura of pure effort. Was now able to work so incredibly hard without giving up. His thoughts drifted back to his past life, where he was a living corpse. In that life, he immediately ran from challenges, gave up, and surrendered. He struggled to comprehend how he could now work so diligently. He wondered what the difference was between his past life and his present. 2 months into the training, a powerful waterfall crashed down. A shirtless Weiss sat recovering, toweling the sweat from his neck. A gloved hand gently came to rest on his head, startling him. He looked up to see his instructor, Milk Sensei, standing over him. She praised him for achieving his goal in just 2 hours. A great improvement. A faint blush crept onto his cheek at her unexpected kindness. He wondered if this was what she had meant by teaching him gently. She promised to reward him with a pat on the head every time he succeeded. He wryly commented that the ratio of carrot to stick felt unbalanced. Her expression darkened as she menacingly disagreed with his assessment. He was left confused by her sudden and ominous shift in demeanor. Just then Lilith approached them, stepping into the clearing. She offered Weiss-sama a light lunch she had brought in a woven basket. Lilith beamed with an expression of pure, innocent kindness. Milk Sensei clarified that she was merely the stick in his training. She reminded him not to forget the carrot role that supports his efforts. Weiss had a moment of sudden, profound realization. Lilith, sensing his stare, looked back with a puzzled expression. He understood that he could do his best thanks to everyone's support. He thought of Lilith, who was always by his side. He remembered Zevis, who provided him with his meals. And he acknowledged Milk Sensei, who toughened her heart for his growth. Without the cooperation of everyone around him, he knew he would not have been able to get this far. He reflected on how his past self and the original Weiss were selfish and only ever thought about themselves. Because of that selfishness, no one ever scolded him or pushed him to be better. He finally understood what he had truly been missing in his life. It was a necessary mix of love, both the sweet and the harsh. A new resolve hardened in his eyes as he vowed to change his ways. His previous goal had simply been to survive and avoid ruin. But now his motivation was to not make his supporters sad. For himself and for everyone else, he would avoid the path of destruction. The grand mansion stood silent under the light of a full moon. During the day, the same mansion was a symbol of his new life. Despite his newfound resolve, the training remained incredibly tough. Milk Sensei set his next goal: 4 more hours of training until he died. He gritted his teeth, acknowledging how difficult the path still was. After 3 months, the trio arrived in a bustling town by a river. Weiss walked with Milk and Lilith, wondering if it was a fun date. He recognized the location as League Bell Town from the game he knew. He accused his teacher of cheating by bringing him to this specific place. He noted with annoyance that the town's security was still as bad as ever. He turned to Milk Sensei, his expression grim and serious. With a sharp gaze, he asked her who his opponent would be. His teacher explained she had assigned him a practical test in the city. He speculated if it involved picking a fight with some random thugs. His eye widened in alarm as his teacher leaned in close. Milk Sensei wore a deeply unsettling and predatory smile. She whispered that she was picking the absolute best opponent for him. As Lilith cheered him on, he felt nothing but profound dread. A horned man with a sinister grin points out a group of people walking by. His thuggish companions make crude remarks about the women in the passing group. Weiss overhears their comments, dismissing him as a cocky kid with a beautiful woman. Milk strikes a subtle pose, seemingly enjoying the attention, while Weiss sweats nervously. With a sharp glare, Weiss thinks how League Bell Town is known as a den of thugs. He clenches his fist, resolving in that moment to protect Lilith from the leering men. His eye narrows with intense determination, As he prepares himself for a confrontation, Milk casually tells Lilith to ignore them, calling them unworthy of their time. Lilith cheerfully agrees with Milk's assessment, while Weiss looks on with a reserved expression. For a moment, Weiss feels an incredible killing intent radiating from the smiling Lilith. Standing before a large manor, he wonders if the strange feeling was just his imagination. The scene shifts to the spacious, wood-paneled interior of a bustling adventurers' guild. Inside, people are seen chatting and drinking together at the guild's bar. Three menacing figures, the Boudin brothers, sit together with grim, shadowed expressions. The brothers corner Weiss, ordering the intimidated young man to step outside with them. He recognizes them as the Boudin brothers, his designated opponents for this test. A memory surfaces of their astonishing list of evil deeds, like murder and slave trading. Milk had explained that the corrupt military police who protected them were finally arrested. She had proposed that they were the perfect opponents for a real, no-holds-barred battle. A naive Weiss had smiled and readily agreed to her dangerous plan. A blurry, fast-paced panel transitions the scene to another memory. He recalls being bested during a chaotic training session with his teacher and companions. Milk gets close to a bruised and tearful Weiss, addressing him with a serious tone. She acknowledges his strong determination, but points out his lack of real combat experience. Real combat is an inevitable path, she explains, so he might as well face it now. She warns him that she won't always be there in the future to watch over him. Many have died facing their first real combat alone due to their inexperience. But for this first time, she promises to be there and help if things get dangerous. She places a reassuring hand on his head, telling him to go into it with confidence. He remembers feeling a profound sense of reassurance from his teacher, Milk Sensei. In the present, he screams in panic, desperately wondering where his teacher has gone. The Boudin brothers lead him alone down a desolate and dusty city alley. His eye widens in fear as he frantically wonders what he should do now. He walks forward with the thugs, his pride not allowing him to back down. He sets a grim goal for himself, to cut off one of their arms. He knows they are skilled fighters and that winning a fair fight is unlikely. Realizing a fight is unavoidable, he knows he needs a plan immediately. His teacher's words echo in his mind, telling him to follow her lessons. He desperately tries to recall the specific lesson Milk Sensei had taught him for this. From a nearby window, Milk and Lilith watch the thugs lead Weiss away. Lilith calls Milk cruel for deceiving him, but Milk defends her motivational tactics. Milk takes a large swig of ale, mumbling about the nature of training. She then quietly admits that she will probably go help if things get really dangerous. Their conversation is interrupted by another group of thugs approaching Lilith. Lilith's expression is serious as she sizes up the new and unwelcome threat. The men leer at her, commenting on her beauty and their own lucky timing. Their leader introduces them as a band of thieves who run things in the area. He explains with a sinister grin that they were short on girls for the night. A horrifying image reveals three other young women, bound and gagged by the thieves. Lilith's eyes widen in sheer terror as she understands the grave danger they are in. Back in the alley, a violent splash of black ink signifies a sudden, brutal attack. The two remaining Boudin brothers stand with their backs turned, completely unaware. A hand suddenly appears over one brother's shoulder, poised to strike from behind. The Ball brother screams in agony, clutching a grievously wounded arm. Weiss has moved with blinding speed, striking before any of them could react. He recalls his teacher's critical lesson, to always move first in a fight. Milk's voice reminds him that catching an opponent off guard is the most important thing. A comical memory shows her lecturing him through a hole in the bathroom wall. Even masters of magic or martial arts will die if they are struck unprepared. The two remaining brothers look at each other, confused and angered by the ambush. They bare their teeth, ready to retaliate against their unseen attacker. The principle is simple: move before your opponent does. Weiss sweeps a leg out. He sends the mohawked brother off balance with a powerful, decisive kick. Ducking under a cleaver, he realizes he has always put off making decisions. A splash of ink signifies another successful definitive strike in the melee. He always thought that tomorrow's me would somehow handle his problems. But now he understands with absolute clarity that time won't solve anything. If something needs to be done, then the decision has already been made. From this moment forward, he will make all his decisions in seconds. With a determined roar, he declares his intention to change himself completely. He vows to cast off the lazy, indecisive version of himself forever. The dust settles, revealing the three Buden brothers defeated on the ground. Panting and sweating, Weiss gasps that his mission was a complete success. He analyzes that if they were prepared, he would have had no chance of winning. He won because he followed his training and moved before the enemy could react. He looks down at his steady hand, awarding himself full points for his performance. Later, he reconsiders, downgrading his performance to only 70 points. Milk critiques him, but Lilith praises him enthusiastically, giving him 200 points. Weiss looks down, muttering the names of his two intense and demanding companions. He asks why they disappeared, as Milk laughs and Lilith calls him scary. With a weary sigh, he lets out an exasperated and quiet, "Geez." Lilith stands with her hands clasped, a picture of innocent and unwavering support. A close-up reveals a small dark stain on her pristine white sleeve cuffs. Weiss points it out, asking Lilith if the spot on her clothes is blood. She gently takes her arm, a soft, knowing smile on her face. She quickly dismisses his concern, insisting it is just his imagination. The truth is revealed. A group of captured criminals are bound and kneeling. The room is a bloodbath, littered with the bodies of over 20 people. In a garden gazebo, a woman reads that the bandits were beaten speechless. The report also mentions the notorious Buden brothers were finally apprehended. It states this was all accomplished with the cooperation of Weiss Vincent. The woman rests her chin on her hand, letting out a thoughtful hum. An intrigued smile plays on her lips as she muses aloud about that Weiss. Her long, flowing white hair drapes over the table as she contemplates. Later, a letter of thanks arrives at the Vincent family estate. 6 months later, Weiss's grueling training has continued relentlessly under a waterfall. Milk reflects on his progress, noting his days of exhaustion are long gone. He once passed out from exhaustion, but now he is far stronger. His eyes snap open with a surge of newfound power and fierce determination. He shatters the rock beneath his feet, having completely surpassed his former limits. A woman watches from the side as a figure unleashes a powerful burst of energy. Weiss reflects that such overwhelming power will no longer be an issue for him. He notes his new ability to detect enemies through walls, even while occupied. Now able to feel mana flowing through him, he believes he has grown considerably. Zevis asks Weiss how his magic training is progressing, and he confirms it's going well. Despite his progress, he admits that Milk Sensei's Spartan training is a great struggle. The 4 base elements of magic, fire, water, wind, and earth, are displayed. Weiss strains to train all 4 elements equally, shocking Zevis with his intense effort. He privately thinks that Milk Sensei is a true demon for her impossibly harsh methods. His expression suddenly shifts to one of wide-eyed shock and dawning realization. Weiss concludes his teacher is even worse than the dangerous Buden brothers he captured. Unseen by him, Milk Sensei peeks through a slightly ajar door with a knowing sly smile. Zevis explains that Milk's intense training is a result of Weiss's extraordinary talent. The butler states that magic is normally limited to a single element for any one person. He points out that even a powerful S-rank adventurer like Milk can only use 2. However, Weiss's exceptionally rare talent allows him to wield all 4 base elements. Zevis reflects that if Weiss had remained lazy, this incredible talent would have been wasted. He admits his past surprise at the boy's carelessness, now impressed by his new diligence. With a look of profound pride, Zevis tells his young master that he has become admirable. The butler stands alone in the grand dining hall, his heartfelt praise hanging in the air. In a jarring cut, Weiss is on the floor, tearfully begging his unseen tormentor not to hit him. Milk Sensei scolds him for breaking his nose with a wooden sword, while Lilith tries to intervene. Her expression softens as she correctly guesses he has been practicing magic in secret. Weiss, still crying, stammers out another apology, confused and startled by her question. Under the bright moonlight, she simply asks him to show her what he has been working on. With newfound determination, Weiss rises and reveals his control over both light and dark energy. Milk and Lilith watch in shock, identifying the rare and powerful light and dark elements. They realize he can use these special magics on top of the 4 base elements. Milk demands to know why he would keep such an incredible ability a secret from them. He sheepishly explains that he wanted to show them only after the magic was fully complete. Weiss admits that his new technique is still incomplete and he hasn't quite mastered it. But with them watching, his gaze hardens with the belief that he can now finally succeed. He prepares to combine both light and dark to create his own unique, original magic. His 2 companions stare in awe, Their faces a mixture of shock, wonder, and anticipation. Levitating in a vortex of power, he declares this to be the result of a year-and-a-half's effort. The sky is clear and bright, signaling the arrival of a new day. A large half-moon hangs in the dark night sky over a distant mountain range. An opulent mansion is hosting a grand party, with elegantly dressed guests arriving at the entrance. Inside, the grand ballroom is filled with the lively chatter of the many attendees. Weiss lets out a large, unrestrained yawn, clearly feeling the effects of his training. Lilith reminds him that yawning is inappropriate, asking if he stayed up too late. She wonders aloud if he is still feeling the fatigue from the previous day's exertions. A flashback confirms that his original magic was successfully completed after his display. His spell, Dark Heal, is revealed to be a combination of Light's healing and Dark's curse magic. A diagram illustrates how it heals allies, while simultaneously dealing continuous damage to enemies. The mana consumption was insane, however, leaving him completely exhausted after its use. Weiss tells Lilith he needs more training, so she decides to fetch some strong booze for him. She dashes off with incredible speed, ignoring a nearby attendant's surprise protest. At the party, Weiss observes a woman in a black dress with the agile movements of an assassin. He recalls hearing rumors about hidden guards in the Vincent family's backstory. A dark, menacing silhouette of a figure holding a knife flashes in his mind. He ultimately dismisses the idea of hidden guards as being highly unlikely. His companion stands nearby as he scans the crowd, a bead of sweat on his temple. A voice calls his name and he turns around with a questioning, He is face to face with a stunning young woman, whom a man identifies as Cynthia Violetta. The man is in absolute awe of her beautiful, shimmering hair and her pretty red eyes. Another unseen observer snickers in agreement, confirming that she is undoubtedly a true beauty. The man is still shocked, confirming her identity as the renowned Countess Cynthia Violetta. He continues to marvel at her beautiful hair and striking red eyes, completely captivated. The second observer confirms with a snicker that she is an undeniable beauty. Cynthia strikes a dazzling pose, introduced as the main heroine of the game. With a sly, knowing smile, she greets Weiss, remarking that it has been a long time. She mockingly asks what's wrong, commenting that he looks like a crushed goblin. Weiss is thrown into a state of visible shock and utter distress by her words. His hand begins to tremble uncontrollably as a terrible realization dawns on him. He remembers that in the world of the game, his character was hated by everyone. Among all the characters, Cynthia was the one who despised him the most. He recalls with horror that she was the one responsible for his character's gruesome death. As a member of the Vincent family, he had reluctantly attended the high society party. He now deeply regrets his decision to participate in such a gathering of individuals. He never expected that he would end up having an encounter with Cynthia before enrolling. He tries to compose himself, but sweat continues to bead on his worried face. Clutching his head in panic, he struggles to recall a hazy, indistinct memory. He wonders if the faint, smiling image is a memory of the previous, original Weiss. Cynthia looks at him with genuine confusion, asking why he is muttering her name. His eye widens in pure horror as a new terrible memory suddenly surfaces. He witnesses a vision of the previous Weiss assaulting Cynthia, holding a knife to her. In the present, she leans in close, telling him that she hasn't forgotten that day. She recounts how he forcefully invited her to his room and attempted to assault her. With pure, unadulterated contempt in her eyes, she calls him a trash noble. He panics, wondering how the old Weiss could have been so brazen as to show his face. Realizing he is completely cornered, he decides on a desperate course of action. He performs a deep, formal bow, offering a sincere and heartfelt apology to Lady Cynthia. He declares that it was all his fault, an act entirely unworthy of a nobleman. Internally, he knows that he probably won't be forgiven for such a heinous transgression, but he gambles on his knowledge that Cynthia is not cruel enough to torment the remorseful. After a long, tense silence, she simply acknowledges his apology with 2 words. In her thoughts, she admits she never expected the arrogant Weiss to bow to others. She peeks at him from the corner of her eye with a curious, almost amused expression. She concludes that her anger has subsided, at least for the moment. Weiss hopes that this desperate act will lower his chances of a future downfall. He decides this is the best he can do and plans to leave as quickly as possible. He begins to turn away from her, resolving to escape the tense situation. He laments that he once wanted to get closer to the heroine he had admired. But now he understands that he and Cynthia are like light and darkness, never to meet. He compares himself to the tragic hero Icarus, knowing it won't end well if he gets closer. Just as he resolves to withdraw from the conversation, a hand firmly grabs his arm. To his astonishment, Cynthia is now holding his hand in the middle of the ballroom. They lock eyes in a moment of charged, silent surprise, the world seeming to stop. From across the room, Lilith watches them with wide-eyed shock and confusion. A young maid looks on with a slightly startled, wide-eyed expression. She observes from a distance as Weiss Vincent walks away with another woman. The woman, Cynthia, has linked her arm with his, inviting him to dance. They stand in the middle of a grand ballroom, surrounded by other dancers. The maid, Lilith, tries to frantically warn a blushing Weiss about something. Much later, Weiss and Cynthia share a pleasant tea time in a gazebo. Nearby, two small birds chirp contentedly in the sunlit grass. Weiss agrees with a smile, acknowledging the lovely sound of the birds. The grand estate is quiet, the peaceful atmosphere undisturbed for now. Cynthia sips her tea, internally questioning the true purpose of her visit. Weiss reflects that this strange situation began on the night of the party. He recalls meeting the main heroine, Cynthia, and being invited to dance. They are seen moving gracefully together across the crowded ballroom floor. While they dance, Cynthia notices his flustered and puzzled expression. She tells him with a knowing smile that she is aware he has changed. A montage reveals the source of these rumors, his intense daily training. Her sharp gaze focuses on him as she prepares to ask a difficult question. She asks if he remembers much about the day of their unpleasant incident. His mind flashes back to the previous Weiss's attempted assault on her. He nervously confirms her question, unsure how to properly apologize for it. In his distraction, he makes a clumsy misstep while they are dancing. Cynthia catches him with surprising grace, pulling him into a close embrace. Their faces are now only inches apart, caught in an intimate moment. She whispers into his ear, asking if he also forgot his love confession. Weiss is utterly stunned by this revelation, stammering in complete shock. His eyes are wide as he tries to process her startling words. Just then, the music ends, and the surrounding guests begin to applaud. With a final farewell, she turns and leaves him standing there captivated. A portrait introduces his stern father, Auguste Vincent, and his associates. Sometime later, a letter from his father arrives at the Vincent mansion. He shouts in disbelief, questioning why a dinner party was Cynthia's planned. His face contorts in panic as he learns she is arriving that very day. To his horror, he glances outside and sees her carriage is already there. A bad premonition fills him as the staff prepares to welcome their guest. A maid discovers a second, more detailed letter from his father inside. This chain of events leads to the present, quiet moment in the gazebo. Weiss seethes internally, cursing his father and questioning his bizarre motives. He admits his happiness, but knows he cannot afford to get close to her. His thoughts reveal that Cynthia was originally destined for the protagonist, Alan. If he becomes her partner, the original story's events will be altered. This change would rob him of his only advantage, knowledge of the scenario. Taking the main heroine for himself would completely ruin the future he knows. He concludes it's bad to be liked, but equally bad to be disliked. He must maintain a perfect distance just as she calls out his name. Cynthia reminds him of his past confession of love at first sight. Weiss looks on, taken aback by her directness and memory of the event. She admits his sudden, arrogant declaration had left her dissatisfied. However, she acknowledges his recent, sincere apology, shown by his deep bow. With a sly smile, she suggests she might not be opposed to him now. They sit opposite each other, the atmosphere now charged with romantic tension. The scene pulls back, showing them sitting together in the quiet gazebo. Weiss is in a state of internal shock over this sudden, unexpected turn. His plan backfired the moment he decided it would be bad to be liked. He recalls Cynthia's tendency to quickly fall for Alan in the original story. He realizes with dread that she is very soft-hearted, a dangerous trait. A hazy, indistinct memory reinforces his understanding of her character. He resolves that he must somehow find a way to lower her affection, but his quiet demeanor is seen as cute, causing her favorability to rise. Lilith's sudden arrival startles him, causing him to let out a pathetic yelp. Lilith offers a tea refill while Weiss laments his undignified sound. He hopes this embarrassing display will finally cool her feelings for him. Instead, she finds it adorable, and her affection meter remains high. Lilith, holding the teapot, addresses Weiss, her expression unreadable. Cynthia asks if he has heard from his father about the day's true purpose. She reveals the dinner party is an introduction for their official engagement. With a sigh of resignation, Weiss agrees to the arrangement. The scene cuts away to a different location, a sense of foreboding in the air. Weiss's father, Agato, muses to himself about his troublesome son. He notes Weiss is handsome like him, but also shy when it comes to romance. He recalls seeing Weiss get the chance to dance with the famous Lady Cynthia. Agato proudly states he immediately settled their engagement without any hesitation. He laughs maniacally while digging in a sandbox with his bewildered subordinates. He boasts of knowing his son's heart and tells his men to help him dig. The scene returns to the quiet, stately Vincent mansion under a cloudy sky. Cynthia is seen off by the staff as she departs in her elegant carriage. Weiss screams internally at his father while Cynthia smiles blissfully from afar. He reflects that the letter was about his official engagement to Cynthia. He knows arranged marriages are common for nobles, but this feels different. Silhouettes represent the formal, political nature of typical arranged marriages. This wasn't political. His father did it simply to make his son happy. He remembers his father was a minor, shadowy character in the original story. He now understands his father as the epitome of an excessively indulgent parent. This indulgence, he feels, is why the original Weiss became a villain. His thoughts are interrupted as he notices someone approaching him. He turns to see Lilith standing before him, her expression full of sorrow. She calls his name, her voice trembling with barely suppressed emotion. Through tears, she pleads for him to find happiness with Cynthia. Weiss is left completely confused by her sudden emotional outburst. Before he can respond, she turns and flees with an incredible burst of speed. He is left baffled by her actions and her surprisingly swift escape. His instructor, Milk, appears and assigns him a new training quota: chase Lilith. Milk asks Weiss if he understands the reason why Lilith was crying. She explains it's because the man she supported was suddenly taken away. Milk declares that she will not allow Lilith to be saddened by this. She commands him to return with Lilith, threatening death as punishment for failure. With a determined cry, Weiss accepts the challenge and sprints after the maid. He understands Lilith would be shocked, as she has always been by his side. He knows he owes an immense debt to her for her unwavering support. He realizes he would not be who he is now without her constant help. He screams her name, desperately trying to catch up to her as she runs. A maid, Lilith, flees at incredible speed, pleading to be left alone. Weiss's face contorts in disbelief, questioning if this is some kind of joke. He desperately pursues her across the rugged landscape, shouting her name. Using magic to leap, they cross a wide river as he begs her to listen. Lilith tearfully insists it's fine, resigning herself to her status as a maid. As they race towards the mansion, Weiss declares she is precious to him. He frantically explains the engagement was his father's decision, not his. While leaping through the trees, he asks if she knows about the academy's servant system. He reveals his intention to enroll her as his personal servant at the academy. His reason, he proclaims, is that he trusts her more than anyone else. Lilith's eyes widen with shock, processing the weight of this declaration. She asks if this means he is truly seeking her out for himself. Weiss is shown panting heavily, his face a mask of pure exhaustion. He confirms that her understanding is precisely why he is trying so hard. Turning the tables, he challenges her to chase after him forever. He struggles up the long, steep staircase, gasping for every breath. Pushing through his exhaustion, he screams his affirmation as he nears unconsciousness. From below, Lilith shouts her agreement with a newfound fierce determination. Her feet pound against the steps as she begins her own rapid ascent. A single tear of resolve streams from her determined eye. She accepts his challenge, now understanding the depth of his insistence. Reaching the top, she proclaims she will now serve as his mistress. Weiss looks on, stunned as she stands before a cliff ahead sign. He looks up in disbelief from below, calling out her name. With a sudden, graceful leap, she throws herself off the cliff's edge. A panoramic view shows her small figure falling into the vast deep canyon. Mid-air, she catches him in a tender embrace, telling him to be at ease. She promises to do her best in their newfound, intimate relationship. She vows to keep their affair a complete secret from everyone else. Weiss looks on, confused and sweating as she holds him close. Leaning in, she whispers that what they now share is a secret love. Far below them, the river water parts and swirls into a new shape. The water forms a perfect heart, symbolizing his new affair and engagement. Elsewhere, in a rustic, rural setting, another young man is training. Alan steels himself for the trial ahead, his back to the viewer. He stands before a monstrous cave entrance, flanked by his companions. His face is a mask of determination. The entrance exam is almost here. Milk Sensei questions if Cynthia's current magic quality is sufficient for the test. Cynthia insists with fiery resolve that she can still refine it further. Lilith is instructed to balance her own magic output more evenly. Weiss looks on with a silent, intense, and deeply focused expression. He laments the bizarre sight of his fiancée and mistress training together. A new chapter begins, reflecting on his recent engagement and secret affair. He admits the entire chaotic situation is too ridiculous to comprehend. He sarcastically thanks his father for making his life so complicated. Milk Sensei announces that they will now move on to practical sparring. She asks Cynthia and Lilith if they have any prior sparring experience. Cynthia confidently confirms that she has indeed sparred before. Lilith also chimes in with an enthusiastic and positive response. Weiss is surprised to learn that Lilith has fighting experience. He reflects on how both Cynthia and Lilith recently joined the training. They had asked Milk Sensei to train them for the upcoming entrance exam. He knows that Cynthia is already more than skilled enough to pass. His plan was for Lilith to be his attendant, not a combatant. He concludes that, technically, neither of them required this intense training. He worries that if the already strong Cynthia puts in even more effort, she could become even more formidable than in the original story. The four stand ready in the training yard, awaiting the matches. Milk Sensei announces the first fight will be between Weiss and Cynthia. She warns him not to hold back just because she is his fiancée. The two combatants take their positions opposite each other in the clearing. She cryptically states she trusts they know to begin without her signal. Before Weiss can ask for clarification, Cynthia explodes into a surprise attack. She leaps, delivering a powerful kick that he barely manages to block. Milk Sensei's voice reminds Weiss of an important lesson regarding combat. Cynthia echoes the lesson, stating the most important thing is the first move. After the initial clash, Weiss braces himself for her next move. He is alarmed as Cynthia suddenly vanishes completely from his sight. A sudden sound alerts him, his eyes widening with intense concentration. His unique, dark eyes focus, tracking her unseen, high-speed movement. He clenches his fist, anticipating the direction of her unseen attack. She reappears with an overhead strike, which he perfectly parries. A voiceover explains that Cynthia's specialty is ice magic. She infuses her legs with magic, allowing her to move at incredible speeds. Her goal is to disorient her opponents and strike from their blind spots. Cynthia lets out a small gasp of surprise at his uncanny reaction. Weiss sidesteps and lands a light but decisive counter on her head. She cries out in frustration as Weiss rushes to apologize for the hit. Milk Sensei explains his tap became a counter due to her high speed. Cynthia expresses her deep frustration at being dodged so easily. Lilith uses a gentle healing spell on the bump on Cynthia's head. Cynthia thanks Lilith for the healing, which she accepts gracefully. Milk Sensei asks Weiss how he managed to read Cynthia's movements. He deflects, suggesting they test if his success was just a fluke. Milk Sensei announces that his next opponent will be Lilith. Weiss complains about fighting again, but is told to get on with it. He reluctantly faces Lilith, who politely looks forward to their match. He initially believes he can't possibly spar seriously with a maid. However, his initial thought is quickly proven to be dangerously wrong. He recalls seeing her perform many actions that were not maid-like. A grim realization dawns. If he lets his guard down, he will die. His eye widens as the true nature of the threat becomes clear. The match begins with Lilith unleashing a fierce barrage of strikes. Weiss grunts with effort, struggling to block her powerful, relentless blows. He is completely on the defensive, his face a mask of intense strain. Milk Sensei notes with interest that he can see Lilith's movements. She realizes his perception of Cynthia's speed was no mere accident. Weiss is in a state of panic, wondering what is happening. He recalls that in the original story, Lilith was a minor character. He notes that despite being new to magic, her skills are incredible. While sparring, Weiss analyzes his opponent, realizing her speed is far superior. He understands that if he doesn't get serious, he will certainly lose. Unleashing his power, he casts Dark Heal, creating a massive magic circle. Lilith immediately recognizes this as Weiss-sama's powerful original magic. She deciphers its dual nature, healing allies while cursing any enemies inside. Her first instinct is to escape the circle's dangerous effect as quickly as possible. She then notices a critical detail. Weiss dropped his sword to cast the spell. Seeing this opening, Lilith realizes he is now completely defenseless. She deduces that fleeing would only leave her vulnerable to his ranged magic. With a burst of resolve, she decides that this is her only chance to strike. Announcing her intention, she dashes forward to seize the opening. Weiss watches her approach with a dark and confident smirk on his face. Her sword clangs loudly against a suddenly appearing hexagonal barrier. The powerful rebound sends her flying backward, her sword knocked from her grasp. Lilith is left completely stunned by the unexpected and impenetrable defense. Crouching, Weiss approves of her not holding back as her attack bounced off. He explains his absolute barrier combines the permanence of dark and light magic. Additionally, he reveals the dark eye magic he has been using to track her. This combination allows him to defend against her superior speed. He challenges her, asking what she will do now that her attack has failed. From the sidelines, their instructor watches with a sharp, concerned expression. She urgently shouts for Weiss to cancel his magic immediately. He turns and sees Lilith swaying on her feet, looking dizzy and unstable. With a heavy thump, Lilith collapses unconscious to the ground. Later, while resting, she quietly admits to Weiss that it was her complete defeat. Another girl says she gave Lilith a potion, as Weiss asks if she's all right. The instructor sternly questions Weiss about the full effects of the magic he used. A companion expresses shock at how quickly the spell drained Lilith's vigor. The instructor presses further, asking if there were any other effects. He begins to explain the true, terrifying power of his Dark Heal spell. It inflicts a cascade of debilitating debuffs on any opponent within the circle. He concludes this is why Lilith's small mana reserve was drained so quickly. With a predatory grin, he reveals he can steal those stats to strengthen himself. The more enemies he faces, the stronger he and his allies become. He glances slyly at his companions, his point made. The three women stare back, completely awestruck by his incredible power. Suddenly, Weiss's own eye widens in a moment of shocking realization. The women sense a new trend emerging from his power display. He panics, wondering if this is the right moment to say that. He muses on what that is, knowing it should be obvious. His face contorts as he wrestles with the overwhelming urge to finally say it. It is the ultimate line everyone dreams of saying after being reincarnated. He trembles with anticipation, desperately wanting to seize the moment. Snapping back, he asks if he did something wrong, and Cynthia challenges him to a duel. A small, confident smile plays on Weiss's lips at her challenge. He reflects on how much his dark-cloaked teacher, Milk, has grown. Cynthia declares it has been a long time since she felt so fired up. She cracks her knuckles with an intimidating and solid thud. Menacingly, she demands he take responsibility and calm her down with his power. Weiss is left sweating profusely, his face a mask of pure terror. And so Cynthia and Lilith officially began training alongside him. Despite enduring the instructor's Spartan training, their misunderstandings remained. Weiss often found himself caught awkwardly between the two vying girls. Before they knew it, the days and months flew by in a flurry. Finally, the group arrives at the academy gates for the entrance test. Weiss realizes the fated time for his meeting with Alan has finally come. A flashback shows him cheerfully planning to groom a girl as his fourth wife. His sly expression hints at the chaos his thoughtless words often cause. The three women can only stare back, their faces a mask of utter horror. The group arrives at the vast, impressive Noblesse Magic Academy. It is known as the kingdom's most prestigious and largest educational institution. Today, the entrance exam is being held on its sprawling grounds. A brutish man suddenly grabs a dark-haired boy, accusing him of staring. The bully threatens the boy, Alan, for trying to mess with him. Nearby, Weiss cracks his knuckles, his glare turning cold and menacing. The bully is sent flying, crying out in pain and utter confusion. Onlookers immediately recognize the infamous and abusive noble, Weiss. Cynthia's presence with him confirms the rumors of their engagement. The students murmur about the other beautiful girls accompanying him. The bully looks up, realizing with sheer terror who just attacked him. Weiss dismisses him, stating he wouldn't bother with someone so insignificant. The terrified man dashes away without a second thought. Weiss muses to himself that his terrible reputation is still going strong. He resolves to be friendly and gradually change people's perception of him. He has finally arrived at the day of the Noblesse Magic Academy entrance test. His singular goal for the day is to defeat a certain man. Alan approaches, thanking him profusely for saving him from the bully. Weiss recognizes the man he must defeat is standing right before him. Alan extends his hand, offering a friendly and sincere handshake. He cheerfully asks Weiss to do their best together in the exam. Weiss stares back with a cold, unreadable, and intense expression. Alan expresses his hope that they will both pass the test. Weiss's gaze remains fixed and unyielding, his thoughts hidden. The two hands remain apart, the handshake left unaccepted. A loud bell rings, startling both of them out of their tense standoff. His companions remind Weiss that the warning bell for the exam has sounded. A friend tells Alan that they also need to hurry to the exam hall. The two groups begin to part ways, heading for the test. Cheryl Elias, Alan's childhood friend, thanks Weiss for his help. She mentions their other friend Duke has already gone on ahead. Weiss is left with a strange, unsettling feeling he can't identify. He reflects on his own hesitation to take Alan's offered hand. Even the simple act of talking to Alan filled him with profound unease. He desperately wonders why he is feeling this way. Inside, Weiss recalls his plan to defeat Alan in the exam. Afterward, he had intended to stay on friendly but distant terms. An instructor announces the start of the practical combat test. He tells them to change into provided hand-me-down uniforms. Weiss clutches his chest, unable to suppress the growing throbbing unease. Emerging ready for battle, Weiss and his companions look formidable and determined. With a hardened expression, Alan declares his intense desire to crush his opponent. His dark ambition quickly expands, revealing it's not just one person he wants to defeat. An overhead view exposes his monstrous inner wish to crush every single person there. In the Colosseum, Weiss questions his own troubled feelings as an instructor explains the rules. An official promises to intervene in the mock battles if they become too dangerous. A muscular student named Duke strains against his uniform, complaining that it is too small. His companion agrees as stinks, while Weiss scolds him for their trivial complaints. A girl cheers for Duke, while another urges them to endure for a new uniform. One girl remarks how impressive it is that the academy provided uniforms for everyone. Cynthia offers a sinister explanation, noting it shows how hellish academy life truly is. Weiss's companions react to her grim assessment with amusement and shock. The academy's brutal reputation is highlighted, where failure means immediate expulsion. Its lessons are described as so intense that some students do not even survive. Many who leave discard their uniforms, never wanting to be reminded of their failure. Despite the danger, Weiss believes that simply getting in the academy isn't difficult. Standing alone as rain begins, Weiss maintains a somber, unreadable expression. An announcer calls for the next match, summoning examinee number 909, Weiss Vincent. His opponent is revealed to be examinee number 907, a dark-haired boy named Alan. Alan looks up, his expression serious as the rain intensifies around him. Weiss meets his gaze with a cold, determined look, ready for their confrontation. Due to the heavy downpour, an instructor orders everyone but the combatants to the stands. The two opponents are left alone, facing each other in the stormy arena. From the stands, the crowd notices of barriers protecting them from the rain. Alan expresses his surprise at facing Weiss and proposes they have a good fight. While a supporter cheers him on, Weiss remains silent, his expression cold and intense. The proctor stands between them, preparing to officially begin the mock battle. With a single word, the command to begin echoes through the rainy arena. The battle explodes as Weiss lunges forward, striking Alan with a ferocious, surprising blow. On the ground, Alan quickly casts a healing spell, a dark magic circle erupting. A wide view shows Alan on the ground within his spell's glowing radius. He cries out in agony as the healing magic struggles against his severe injuries. A female friend of Alan's watches from the stands, her hands covering her mouth in horror. Weiss's companions, Cynthia and Lilith, look on with expressions of stunned disbelief. In the pouring rain, Weiss walks away cursing as his opponent screams in agony. Sweat drips from his face as he realizes with distress that something is wrong. An overwhelming burning urge to crush his foe consumes him, a dark aura flaring. His eye widens in confusion, questioning the strange sensation that has been building. He desperately wonders about the source of this unsettling and powerful emotion. Standing over his fallen opponent in the arena, he grabs him, a realization dawning. As he holds Alan, he admits the feeling is overwhelmingly good. Identifying its source, a shadowy inner self looms as he questions if this dark persona is responsible. Following the conclusion of the entrance exams, the scene shifts to a grand building. Inside an opulent room, a headmaster asks two individuals what they did to Weiss. They are identified as Zevis Alden, a family butler, and Melk Avitus, an adventurer. An instructor begins his report, expressing his shock at Weiss Vincent's performance. He reveals Weiss, though battered, broke every single record during the exams. Headmaster Gills asks the two who raised Weiss for their assessment of the boy. He questions what they think of a student possessing such dangerous abilities. Zevis and Milk remain silent, offering no immediate answer to the headmaster's query. Another man, Instructor Darius, interrupts, asking the headmaster if he may speak. Darius clarifies that Weiss's scores are indeed the highest in the Academy's history. He notes, however, that Weiss tied for first place with a previous year student. Milk downplays her role, stating she only provided some basic training for Weiss. Zevis agrees, adding that his contribution was merely supporting the boy with meals. The butler's eye narrows as he prepares to elaborate on the specific diet. He explains that he provided Weiss with a regimen rich in protein. Darius looks on in utter disbelief, questioning the mention of protein. Zevis lists the specific foods, including soy, dairy, and chicken tenders. Darius slams his hand out, shouting that they shouldn't mess with him. He insists such a diet could not produce Weiss's mastery of complex magic. Milk casually drinks from a mug, stating she doesn't know what else to say. Having finished her drink, she passes out as Zevis expresses his exasperation. The headmaster tells Darius to calm down, noting Milk has always been this way. Zevis grabs a chair, lamenting that this entire situation is cruel to the boy. A flashback shows Weiss kneeling over Alan's broken body in the rain. The memory concludes with the grim fact that Alan had nearly died. An instructor named Darius angrily reveals that Alan was his exceptionally talented student. Turning his fury on a drunken woman, he questions her battlefield competence. With a taunting smile, the woman, Milk, dismisses his anger as unsightly jealousy. She accuses him of lashing out because his student lost, causing him to grit his teeth. As the headmaster intervenes, Darius blames Milk for failing to guide Weiss properly. The butler Zevis calmly acknowledges the headmaster's concerns about Weiss's enrollment. He confidently assures them that Weiss would never use his power against the weak. Outside the family estate, an observer notes that Weiss has indeed changed. He now pushes himself with genuine effort, seeking strength through courage. The triumphant trio happily departs, waving their acceptance letters in the rain. Their journey marks a significant transition to a new phase of their lives. They arrive before the grand and imposing structure of the Noblesse Magic Academy. Inside a classroom, a teacher offers her congratulations to the new students. The camera pans across the backs of the newly enrolled class. She introduces herself as Chloe, the instructor in charge of their class. She repeats her sentiment, expressing that she looks forward to teaching them. A diverse group of students, including a confident boy, are welcomed. Other classmates, like a shy girl with braids, listen with varying expressions. Weiss and his two companions are officially welcomed to the Noblesse Magic Academy. A close-up on Weiss's eye reveals his intense, unwavering focus. His sharp gaze scans the classroom, eventually settling on a single student. His rival from the exam, Alan, sits nearby, unaware of the scrutiny. With a troubled look, Weiss recalls the events of the entrance exam. He remembers his victory, stating that he successfully defeated Alan. He was consumed by dark emotions and nearly beat his opponent to death. Despite being knocked down repeatedly, Alan always managed to get back up. Each time he rose, his power seemed to grow, his will unbreakable. Although Weiss won by a landslide, the victory took longer than expected. Frustrated, he snaps his fingers, feeling he witnessed a true protagonist's spirit. Suddenly, the students are startled by a mysterious light from their hands. Their instructor, Chloe, calmly directs their attention to the glowing crests. She explains that each of them has been granted 1,000 points. The students stare at their hands, questioning the purpose of these points. An intense close-up reveals a person's face, their eyes hidden behind opaque, light-reflecting glasses. The academy instructor, Chloe, explains that points are a crucial measure of worth. Writing on the board, she confirms that everyone starts with 1,000 points. She then makes an exception, singling out the student Weiss Vincent. A glowing crest on his hand reveals he has been granted 2,000 points. His classmates erupt in shocked chatter, questioning the doubled amount. Weiss challenges his instructor, asking if this special treatment isn't unfair. Another student demands a proper explanation of what the points even mean. With a dark and knowing look, Chloe adjusts her glasses in silence. Her ominous demeanor leaves Weiss startled and on edge. She decides that experience will be a far better teacher than mere words. Her first command is for every student to arm themselves with a wooden sword, She then orders them all to proceed to the academy's training grounds. The scene cuts to the vast, open sky above the school. On a dusty field, she announces the beginning of a combat test. She clarifies that while she congratulated them, graduation is not guaranteed for all. The grim rule is revealed. Reaching 0 points means immediate expulsion. A student with a headband gasps, horrified by the brutal stakes. Chloe declares they will fight until someone's points are completely depleted. Far away, a red-haired woman drinks amidst a scene of defeated men. She laments how empty her days have become since Weiss left for school. A mischievous, dangerous glint appears in her eye as an idea forms. She resolves to get a teaching license, sensing a storm is brewing. Back at the academy, a charismatic student approaches Weiss's group. Introducing himself as Louis, he praises Weiss's amazing battle score. Weiss and his two companions, Cynthia and Lilith, look on, unimpressed. The girls radiate a clear "don't talk to us" aura toward him. Weiss recalls from an original story that Louis was meant to be a top student. However, the reality of the training grounds tells a very different story. Chloe holds up a crest showing 0 points, asking if Louis understood her. The once promising Louis Missent kneels in the dirt, bloodied and expelled. Witnessing this, Weiss stares in horror, processing the shocking event. He realizes with dawning dread that Louis was utterly crushed by Alan. The scene shifts to the ornate, echoing ceiling of the dining hall. Students are scattered sparsely throughout the vast, quiet room. Sitting with his tray, Weiss wonders desperately what he should do now. He remembers his original plan to keep the established story intact. But now his careful strategy is rapidly falling apart. He reflects on how the main heroine has inexplicably become his fiancée, and Louis, who was supposed to stay, was expelled on the very first day. A look of pure panic fills his eye as his world descends into chaos. An even more unexpected development begins to surface from within him. He feels the dark, aggressive emotions of the original Weiss stirring. Ever since meeting Alan, his inner self has urged him toward violence. He struggles against the overwhelming impulse to crush everyone around him. He fears that giving in will lead him down the original path to ruin. He is frozen in a state of silent, sweat-drenched panic. The camera pans up to the grand ceiling of the dining hall. Cynthia's voice cuts in, asking if he truly wants to crush them all. She calmly states that if that is his true desire, it sounds fine to her. Weiss is utterly bewildered by her nonchalant acceptance of his dark thoughts. As she thanks the chef for the meal, Weiss remains speechless. He questions why she isn't reacting with shock to his inner monologue. She reminds him of the brutal nature of the Noblesse Magic Academy. Her sharp, direct words startle him out of his confusion. She confesses that, honestly, she had been a little worried about him. A flashback reveals her concern over what she saw as his excessive kindness. But seeing him fight changed her perspective on the merciless world. Weiss listens, still trying to process her ruthless and pragmatic logic. Lilith then chimes in, announcing that she feels the exact same way. She politely declines the chef's offer for another bowl of pot-au-feu. She agrees that the world of competition demands absolute ruthlessness. With a bright smile, she passionately vows to support him no matter what. Her unwavering loyalty and support clearly touch Weiss. The chef misinterprets her passion, asking if she is still hungry. Cynthia adds that as his fiancée, he needs a conquering spirit. A grateful, gentle smile appears on Weiss's face as he looks at her. He turns to both of his companions and thanks them for their support. He admits their perspective helped, though he is still unsure of his path. He expresses his gratitude for being able to talk to both of them. Lilith gets his attention, preparing to offer him a simple solution. She suggests that a coin toss could decide his path if he cannot. Weiss considers her idea, seeing it as a viable option in the chaos. Since the scenario is already in ruins, he feels fate is his best guide. He resolves to stop thinking and let the coin decide everything for him. The chef suddenly grabs his arm, tearfully demanding he eat his meal. The sudden lurch sends the coin flying through the air in a high arc. It clatters across the floor, rolling away from the stunned group. Weiss and the chef can only watch in silence as it disappears. The coin's front depicts the kingdom's castle, representing heads. Its back shows a fearsome dragon, symbolizing the strongest, 4 tails. He decides that heads means he will try to get along with Alan to avoid ruin. The coin wobbles to a stop, landing right next to someone's shoe. It lies flat on the floor, its fated outcome still unseen. But if it lands tails up, he will embrace his dark, aggressive impulses. A gloved hand reaches down and picks the coin up from the floor. A dark-haired boy walks towards Weiss, interrupting the chef's antics. Alan smiles, telling Weiss that he dropped the coin and returns it. Weiss looks at his rival, his expression cold and completely unreadable. Alan apologizes for his late greeting, glad he still managed to enroll. He confesses that he was glad because he wanted to see Weiss again. He then corrects himself, stating he actually wanted to fight him again. A slow, knowing smirk spreads across Weiss's face as he listens. He takes the coin from Alan, quietly acknowledging his challenge. He reveals the coin in his palm. It was Tails, the dragon facing up. Weiss and Alan stand opposite each other. A new intense rivalry forged. Alan casually turns and asks the tearful chef for some pot-au-feu. The scene shifts to a vast, empty arena under a cloudy sky. A massive explosion of magic erupts during a heated combat test. With a savage grin, Weiss unleashes his power, sending an opponent flying. Chloe calmly declares the match is over, surrounded by shocked students. A young woman named Chris Schlegel is shown defeated, her expulsion officially declared. The sky above seems to carry the sound of an anguished cry. A muscular student, enraged by his teammates' loss, lets out a guttural roar. With a savage grin, Weiss lands a single decisive blow on the charging student. Looking back over his shoulder, Weiss coolly announces the expulsion of Gustav Gregorio. From deep within the dense forest, another pained scream echoes through the trees. Two more defeated students, Karune and Lehman, are also declared expelled from the academy. Other students are shown defeated in comical ways as their time at school ends. Cynthia approaches Weiss, impressed that he has managed to expel 6 more rivals today. Now a decisive leader, Weiss commands his team to flank their next targets. With a determined grin, he internally thanks Alan for removing all of his hesitation. A long-haired girl stares in shock at the incredible ferocity of her teammate. Her companion, a girl with a ponytail, looks ready to strike a confused boy. Inside a dark, Spartan dorm room, a lone girl sits on her bunk bed. The girl Carta tearfully tells herself that others must keep going on without her. A magical device displays the number 22 as she admits she is at her limit. Her face a mask of desperation, she pleads for someone, anyone, to help her. A referee's flag is raised as a bird flies by, signaling that a match is over. Weiss stands triumphant over a defeated Alan, his fierce advance continuing unabated. A close-up reveals Weiss's intense, sweat-drenched gaze, filled with burning hatred. Alan mirrors his expression, panting heavily with an equally hateful stare. 1 month has passed since the students enrolled at the Grand Academy. In a mock battle, Weiss sends another student flying with a predatory grin. A tally of crossed-out figures shows 10 students have already dropped out. He internally boasts that he was personally responsible for 7 of those dropouts. Within a classroom, students chatter as they crowd around the new ranking lists. 2 of them realize in shock that Weiss Vincent has ranked first in every single field. At his desk, Weiss sits with an intense and sharp gaze, focused on his goals. A furious Duke Billion confronts him, questioning if this is his second life. He demands to know what kind of insane training regimen Weiss could have followed. Duke recalls how Weiss easily slipped past Cheryl's magical threads in a flag battle. The memory shows Weiss standing victoriously with a flag over a defeated Alan. This single victory earned him a staggering 5,700 points, securing first place. Duke continues his tirade, wondering how much virtue Weiss had in a past life. Elsewhere, Alan apologizes to his teammates for losing to Weiss yet again. One of his friends tells him not to worry, and to simply win the next time. The girl then shoots a harsh, resentful glare across the room. Her intense and hateful gaze is fixed directly upon the silent Weiss. Weiss feels the weight of her animosity, a bead of sweat on his temple. He clenches his teeth, trying to convince himself that the situation is fine. He reflects that the original Weiss vented his emotions in underhanded, hateful ways. In contrast, he now lets out these feelings through fair and square matches. He concludes that since he has done nothing wrong, no one should hate him. Despite his reasoning, Cheryl stares at him with an undeniable menacing intensity. Weiss internally pleads with the girl to stop looking at him in such a way. He is visibly unnerved, sweating under the pressure of her constant glare. An instructor with glasses addresses a student sitting at her desk. She calls a student by name, addressing Cardasan with a stern expression. The instructor warns her about the consequences of not scoring in the next test. The girl, Cardaviole, quietly agrees, insisting that she will be fine. The instructor coldly dismisses her, stating she was not asking if she was fine. As Carda leaves, Weiss watches her with a sharp and focused gaze. His mind repeats her name, Cartaviel, with a look of deep concern. He recalls that in the original story, her frustration motivated her best friend. This was supposed to happen only after Carta herself had been expelled. Weiss remembers that this is how the side story was meant to unfold. He acknowledges that his fair match with Chris inadvertently caused this chain of events. He understands that after the next test, Carta's time at the academy is over. She is destined to leave the academy quietly, without leaving any particular mark. A shadow falls over his face, hinting at a new, unspoken resolve forming. Carta looks up from her desk, hearing a sound from behind her. Two female students approach, asking about her plans for the upcoming exam. They mockingly ask if she even has a partner for the tag battle. One cruelly reminds her that her annoying best friend has already been expelled. They laugh about how Weiss absolutely thrashed her in a single match. Their laughter is cut short, as they notice Weiss standing behind them. They freeze in terror, exclaiming his name in utter shock and disbelief. Carta looks up, equally surprised by his sudden and unexpected appearance. Weiss extends a hand, asking if she wants to team up for the exam. Later, the two stand on a high cliffside overlooking the Grand Academy. A flustered Carta asks why he would want to pair up with someone like her. She points out the disparity between his top rank and her near-expulsion status. She begins to mention his fiancée, Cynthia, before her voice trails off. Suddenly, her eyes widen in sheer terror at an unseen presence. She is struck by a vision of a menacing, dark silhouette in the nearby woods. A dark, shadowy figure with long hair radiates a palpable and terrifying killing intent. Weiss notices her distress, turning to ask what is wrong with her. He misinterprets her fear, asking if she is perhaps worried about his fiancé. He assures her that Cynthia would understand is just a strategy to win. Carta tries to explain it was a terrifying bloodlust she just felt. She glances back at the woods, now seeing nothing but trees. Weiss cuts her off, telling her to listen to his reasoning. He states that he isn't trying to help out of pity for every student who gets expelled. She wonders if the menacing presence was just a figment of her imagination. He admits, however, that it would be a real waste if she were expelled. He turns and pays her a direct compliment, praising her impressive flying magic. He explains that her unique, hard-to-control magic is a talent being wasted. Carta remains certain that the mysterious woman was definitely there just now. He concludes that teaming up with her is the most efficient option for the exam. Carta is shocked, finally understanding his cold, logical, and pragmatic reasoning. Just then, Cynthia emerges from the trees with a confident and knowing smile. She praises Carta for her impressive and finely tuned sensing ability. She wonders if Carta's perception is even sharper than Weiss's own dark eye skill. Cynthia's smile turns sly as she adds a chilling and unexpected caveat. She points out that Carta still failed to notice Lilith's master assassination techniques. Lilith appears behind Carta with a cheerful grin, making her yelp in terror. Cynthia explains the upcoming tag battle is a joint exam for all 3 years. She reveals Weiss's strategy is to partner with Carta for her special ability. Cynthia announces she will pair with Lilith and encourages Carta to join Weiss. Carta is left trapped between the two smiling girls, her face a mask of terror. On a desolate cliffside, a young man named Weiss states his decision to form a partnership. He declares their special training must begin immediately, as the exam is fast approaching. Before him stands a young woman named Carta, who looks utterly miserable and overwhelmed. With tears in her eyes, she forces a pained smile and weakly agrees to his proposal. The narrative explains this was the start of their training, the pressure already immense. Sometime later they walk to a sun-dappled forest, discussing the nature of flying magic. Weiss, his face smudged with dirt, confidently remarks that he is getting the hang of it. Carta, a skilled flying magic user, playfully corrects him, noting he barely stayed airborne. She then explains the exam plan is for her to fly while he rides with her. As they walk towards the academy, she concludes he has no real need to learn the skill. However, Weiss expresses that he saw this as a rare chance to acquire a new ability. A look of surprise and intrigue crosses Carta's face as she listens to him. He believes any magic can be a powerful weapon, so there is no harm in knowing more. Furthermore, he points out that he currently has a perfect teacher right beside him. He then offers a sincere apology for dragging her into extra, non-essential training. Carta looks at him, a faint blush on her cheeks, as she silently takes in his words. In return for her help, he makes a solemn vow to absolutely prevent her from being expelled. He then asks if she would be willing to continue their lessons even after the exam. A small, knowing smile appears on Carta's face as she muses that rumors are unreliable. She laughs, expressing her surprise that the infamous Weiss is actually a hard worker. With a bright expression, she happily agrees to continue helping him with his training. Weiss reflects that despite his reputation as a lazy noble, he is nothing of the sort. Inspired by his dedication, Carta resolves that she wants to be just like him. From a high window, a bespectacled instructor observes the two students walking away. She identifies the young man by his full name, Weiss Vincent. In his office, Headmaster Gills finds Weiss's exam score to be almost unbelievable. The instructor confirms this, adding that he single-handedly caused most of the expulsions. The headmaster concedes that while Weiss is impressive, the entire first-year class is exceptional. The instructor reveals the student who surprised her most was an apprentice named Alan. A flashback shows Alan repeatedly rising from failure, growing stronger with each defeat. She then mentions two other students who also caught her completely off guard. The two are revealed to be Lilith and Cynthia, their faces grimy as their swords clash. A dynamic shot shows the two women locked in a fierce and fast-paced duel. The instructor narrates that their growth has been at an unimaginable pace since enrolling. It is explained that they trained as if their very lives were on the line. Their brutal regimen involved forgoing reinforced gear in favor of more dangerous conditions. They engaged in perilous combat using real sharpened swords instead of practice weapons. This risky life-or-death training method forged them into incredibly powerful warriors. The result of their intense dedication was a staggering increase in their strength. The flashback concludes with both of them collapsing, utterly exhausted from their efforts. A dark, menacing close-up shows Cynthia's face, consumed by her battle fervor. Lilith mirrors her expression, her own face a mask of intense determination. Kneeling opposite each other, Cynthia casts a healing spell on her training partner. Cynthia compliments Lilith's skill, but Lilith insists that Cynthia is the impressive one. With blood on her lips, Lilith vows with fierce determination to become even stronger. Cynthia shares her motivation, to stand by Weiss's side as a strong and proud equal. Lilith listens intently, her own resolve hardening, as she watches Cynthia speak. She passionately declares that she, too, wants to grow stronger for Weissima. Her goal is to become someone he can truly rely on when he finds himself in danger. Their intense moment gives way to a playful argument over who is the stronger of the two. Their expressions then turn sharp and menacing as they come to a new agreement. They decide their immediate goal is to drag Carta away from Weiss's side. Miles away, Carta shivers on her bed, wondering about the sudden, inexplicable chill. The sun rises over the mountains, heralding the arrival of the exam day. Students gather in a large courtyard, standing upon an intricate magic circle. A small group of students prepares for the upcoming event. A student named Duke Billion announces it is time to decide pairings via rock, paper, scissors. He yells that any losers must team up with a random stranger for the test. As other students play, Weiss and Carta walk past, their partnership already decided. An announcer counts down as the pair is enveloped in light, ready for teleportation. In a flash of light, they materialize within a dense, sun-dappled forest. Weiss confirms their plan to hunt down the upperclassmen with the highest point values. He turns to Carta with a confident grin, asking if she is ready for the challenge. An announcement confirms all students have been transported to their starting points on the mountain. The joint 3-year event is officially declared to have begun, showcasing various participants. One pair of students clenches their fists, their expressions filled with grim determination. Another pair exudes an air of arrogant confidence, mocking the competition. A third team looks on with more reserved and cautious expressions. A long-haired girl with a rose in her hair watches the proceedings with calm observation. The scene bizarrely cuts to a woman relaxing on a beach surrounded by defeated pirates. In a different setting, she tries to recall something important she had planned to do. Suddenly, a flash of realization strikes her. A caption emphasizes the importance of acting on a sudden idea right away. She remembers her plan to get a teaching license for the Noblesse Magic Academy. Back on the mountain, a large armored bird soars through the clear blue sky. The vast, rugged mountain range of the survival test is shown in a wide shot. A student suddenly cries out in agony as he is enveloped in crackling electrical energy. His partner turns in alarm, questioning what is happening to him. The partner can only stare in shock and confusion at the sudden, unseen attack. A stork-like bird lets out a sharp cry as it flies across the sky above them. A close-up on the bird's determined eyes suggests it is responsible for the assault. An announcement declares 2 underclassmen, Ariel and Vivi, to be out of combat. The defeated students are enveloped in light, being teleported back to the academy. 2 upperclassmen watch their departure, one letting out a quiet, mocking laugh. The grinning student smugly remarks that the underclassmen are far too easy to defeat. He scoffs that they were unable to see through such a simple trap. His bespectacled friend cautions him not to underestimate the underclassmen. He mentions a rumor that an amazing new student has enrolled this year. The other student dismisses it, claiming that all the famous students have already dropped out. Intrigued, the bespectacled student presses his friend for the rumored prodigy's name. He recalls the name, confirming that it is Weiss Vincent. As the name is spoken, his partner is struck down in a blur of motion from behind. The attacker is revealed to be Weiss himself, a sharp, predatory grin on his face. The bespectacled student, Liddy, can only stare in utter shock. He panics, shouting that his partner, a middle-classman, is now out of combat. Before he can react, a powerful vortex of dark energy is launched directly at him. The spell is cast not by Weiss, but by another student entirely. A short-haired blonde student looks up in frustration, having been interrupted. He has just defeated his own opponent, who now lies unconscious on the ground. He yells at Weiss, who is landing gracefully from the sky, for the sudden intrusion. A young combatant keenly analyzes his opponent's powerful fire spell. His sharp gaze quickly focuses on a star-shaped insignia on the man's shoulder. He realizes this mark signifies excellent achievements, confirming the senpai's formidable strength. In response, Weiss leaps into the air from a shimmering energy platform he calls Unnatural Wall. His opponent places his hands on the ground, preparing a powerful counterattack. The earth trembles as he gathers a massive amount of magical energy. With a furious scream, he commands Weiss to burn to ashes. A massive torrent of fire erupts from the ground where Weiss just was. The attacker watches in shock as his spell misses, hitting only empty air. Stunned, he wonders aloud if his opponent just changed direction in midair. Weiss twists his body, kicking off another newly formed unnatural wall. He uses the momentum to propel himself downward, sword first at his stunned foe. The attacker's face contorts in panic, confirming his astonishment at the impossible maneuver. The counterattack strikes home in a brilliant flash of light and energy. Weiss lands with perfect balance, his back to his falling, defeated opponent. A calm, satisfied expression settles on his face after the swift victory. The name of his unique technique, Unnatural Wall, is revealed. A flashback shows him training, explaining he learned this skill instead of flight magic. He reveals creating the transparent wall by mixing light, dark, and non-attribute magic. The technique allows him to create solid footholds in midair. He explains its limitations. The wall is temporary and consumes more magic with height. Despite its constraints, he feels it has greatly expanded his tactical options. A sharp sound effect emphasizes the impact of his successful counter. He concludes that he is glad he took the flying magic lessons. A confident smirk appears on his face as he stands victorious. He is immediately confronted by Mehit, who attacks with his sword. Mehit's blade clangs uselessly against an unnatural wall, as he demands to know what it is. A figure slams into Mehit from behind, knocking him out of the competition. The defeated Mehit is sent flying as Weiss watches the scene unfold. Weiss's partner, floating above, apologizes for her sudden intervention. The flying mage girl, Cardaviel, explains she attacked when Weiss missed her signal. Looking up, Weiss sheepishly apologizes but thanks her for the help. He compliments her skill, while she asks about his automatic barrier. A new challenger, Archimedes, adjusts his glasses with a condescending smirk. Weiss analyzes their defeated foe's inefficient defensive magic. He stands over the unconscious opponent, his gaze sharp and critical. Archimedes identifies Weiss as the partner of the student just defeated. He mockingly calls Weiss the top-ranked underclassman and warns him not to get cocky. With unshakable confidence, he declares victory against his database attacks is impossible. He whips off his glasses and laughs, his body crackling with energy. He boasts that removing his glasses increases his combat ability by the value of pi. A massive, shadowy figure looms behind Weiss as he unleashes Dark Heel. Archimedes cries out in agony as his strength is rapidly drained away. His glasses lie forgotten as he wonders about this unknown technique. Weiss taunts him for his lack of research as he lunges forward. With a swift slash, Weiss cuts through Archimedes in a flash of light. He calmly declares his victory with a simple, "All right." With a predatory grin, he urges Carta onward, aiming for more points. Carta looks at her own device displaying her new score. The device shows her points have jumped from 22 to 1,336. She lets out a small squeak of pure shock at the massive increase. Later, the duo walks through a barren, rocky landscape. They are greeted by a new group of 4 students. 2 formidable young women, Cynthia and Lila, stand before them. Cynthia formally asks Weiss and his partner for the honor of a match. Elsewhere, a magic bird is struck down from the sky. A first-year student is sent sprawling, defeated by an unseen assailant. In a forest clearing, Weiss and Carta have paused their hunt. Weiss clicks his tongue, noting that the upperclassmen have vanished. Carta looks around the empty woods, confirming they are gone. He deduces the magic birds' announcements have made their prey cautious. A wicked grin spreads across his face as he dismisses their caution. He declares it doesn't matter where they run as they take to the sky. High above the trees, he lays out their revised strategy of hunting upperclassmen. Carta's eyes widen with concentration as she agrees to the plan. He reflects that he chose Carta for her special abilities. Her rare and difficult-to-master flying magic is one of them. A glint in her eye showcases her sharp perception. Her extraordinary detection ability is her most important talent. She senses a third-year student who is expertly hiding their magic. With a simple, "Okay," Weiss acknowledges the target. He dives towards the forest with a cheerful, "I'm off then." He knows their combined skills allow for devastating surprise attacks from above. The plan is working flawlessly as he stalks his prey. The magic birds provide perfect cover, obscuring his human form. With a manic grin, he prepares to strike from above. He catches another student completely off guard with a powerful blow. The defeated student is teleported away as Weiss reflects on his strategy. He notes that surprise attacks are strong because people rarely have defenses up. This confirms the lessons his teacher, Milk Sensei, had drilled into him. Resting on a branch, he asks Carta how much time is left. Learning there are only 20 minutes, he panics and urges her to hurry. Carta tries to calm him, showing their score of 2,070 points. He roars that it's nowhere near enough, his face a mask of fury. He reminds her that the point system comes with special privileges. He begins to list the incredible rewards available for high ranks. As students progress, their numbers drop, and B&A ranks increase. In the Academy's long history, no student has ever reached S rank. Carta's eyes widen with dawning horror as she realizes his goal. She asks if he is aiming for S rank by hunting upperclassmen. Weiss lets out a quiet, dismissive humph at her question. He bellows that his immediate, all-important objective is B rank. He clarifies that S rank is his ultimate goal, but not right now. He asks if she knows about the B rank private room privileges. The reward is a luxurious room with all-you-can-eat premium fruits. He initiates a flashback to about a year ago to explain. During his Spartan training, his only joy was the dessert after meals. The grueling regimen grew harsher and harsher, pushing him to his limits. The strain caused him to gradually lose his sense of taste. One day the butler Zevis prepared something special for him. A glorious, perfectly sliced mellow is presented on a pristine white plate. Weiss recalls how its exquisite flavor miraculously restored his lost sense of taste. He remembers that this rare, hard-to-obtain fruit is available through B-rank room service. His entire motivation for the current exam is to earn enough points for that fruit. With comical puppy eyes, he pleads for his partner Carta's cooperation until the end. Carta muses on his unusual motivation, never guessing it was all about food. A sudden private thought strikes her, causing a faint blush to appear. She remembers with a start that her own family grows these special melons. She shyly wonders if he would come over to visit if she told him. Her face flushes with romantic hope at the very thought of his visit. Her hopeful expression instantly transforms into one of wide-eyed, abject shock. A colossal, chaotic pillar of dark energy erupts from the distant forest. Both she and Weiss stare at the ominous sight in stunned, horrified silence. Weiss notes that even from a distance, he can tell what they are seeing. He identifies the immense, swirling power source as a true monster. Carta, her face pale with terror, insists that the person responsible is impossible to defeat. She frantically urges him to escape with her immediately before it's too late. Instead of fleeing, Weiss lands heavily on the ground, bracing himself for action. High above, Carta calls out his name in a mixture of confusion and alarm. A wide, manic grin spreads across his face as he finds the situation interesting. He charges head-on, leaving Carter to question his incredibly reckless decision. Skidding to a halt, he arrives in a sun-dappled and peaceful forest clearing. Before him sits an elegant woman surrounded by birds in a beam of light. She greets him softly, correctly identifying him as the rumored Weiss Vincent. A full profile reveals her as the formidable and beautiful second-year, Eva Everell. He respectfully acknowledges her as Eva Everell Senpai, his senior. With a wide, battle-hungry grin, he eagerly challenges her to a match. A confident, knowing smile plays on her lips, unseen by him. She expresses her delight at receiving an invitation from someone so famous. His inner thoughts confirm that she is the strongest student in the entire academy. He knows her as the true last boss, an official, game-breaking cheater. Her overwhelming strength in the original story made her bored with academy life. He recalls that she was destined to leave after this very exam. Clenching his fist, he remembers she was a character no player could ever defeat. With grim determination, he realizes this is his one and only chance to fight her. Ava watches him approach, her own expression one of amused, predatory confidence. With a primal roar, he lunges forward, unleashing his full power in the opening move. Elsewhere, a separate battle has concluded, leaving one student defeated on the ground. A young man cries out in anguish for his fallen teammate Cheryl. Two female students now corner the last remaining opponent, a boy named Alan. They reveal their desire to defeat him in order to gain Weiss's acknowledgement. The girls prepare to attack the lone, dark-haired boy who stands his ground. Alan's face contorts in a furious snarl as his own power begins to surge. A massive burst of energy erupts, shocking his opponents, who wonder if he is awakening. Back at the main fight, Weiss pants heavily, completely exhausted from the intense battle. Eva calmly notes that time is up, her demeanor completely unfazed and serene. Standing amidst the ruins, she compliments him for forcing her to use magic. Weiss observes that she was also clearly holding back her true, immense power. His mind reels, acknowledging the incredible, overwhelming strength of Eva Everell. He recalls using every single one of his signature skills against her. He realizes with grim finality that none of his powerful attacks worked on her. Eva explains that she had been growing quite bored of the academy. She admits that she was planning to quit right after this exam. With a sly smile, she confesses that she has now taken a liking to him. Her confident posture reveals her sudden, unexpected change of heart. She decides to stick around the academy a little longer, intriguing a weary Weiss. As the exam officially ends, Carta descends from the sky on her staff. An announcement declares that all students will now return to the academy. Pillars of light erupt, teleporting everyone from the ruined, smoldering battlefield. Weiss reflects that he has once again made a major change to the original scenario. His actions have ensured that the powerful Eva will remain at the academy. He also succeeded in his goal of helping Carta avoid her fated expulsion. Amidst the chattering crowd of students, he sees two familiar figures approaching. Cynthia and Lilith limp forward, battered and bruised, supporting one another. He is stunned, questioning how the formidable pair could have possibly been defeated. His mind races in disbelief, wondering who on earth could have done it. Cynthia's face is a mask of pain as she offers a heartfelt apology to Lilith. She blames her own overconfidence and growing pride for their ultimate loss. She confesses that she dragged her friend into her suffering as a result. Lilith, however, insists that she is the one who should be apologizing. She feels her own weakness is what tarnished Cynthia's perfect battle record. Her expression is filled with a deep, personal, and profound regret. She confesses to Weiss that she desperately wanted to win the fight. Her specific goal, she reveals with intensity, was to win against Alan. Weiss's eyes widen as he spots Alan and Carta together in the distance. Alan, though bruised and weary, stands tall beside a quiet, melancholy Carta. The unexpected and shocking outcome leaves Weiss completely bewildered. In the final moments, Alan notices Weiss staring from across the field. Alan's gaze is sharp and intense, meeting his rival's shocked stare. Weiss responds with a smug, challenging grin, despite his surprise. Alan's expression is one of grim, unwavering, and focused determination. Dark, ethereal energy swirls around Weiss as he is teleported away from the field. Life at the grand and opulent academy returns to its usual daily routine. Soon after the exam, Weiss is promoted to B rank, gaining a life of luxury. He finds that the daily competitions against lower-ranked students are now unsatisfying. A duel shows him effortlessly disarming an opponent with an expression of pure boredom. It seemed these peaceful, albeit unfulfilling days would continue for a while. The instructor with glasses then makes a special announcement in the classroom. She begins to introduce a guest instructor as the classroom door rattles open. The students, including Weiss, turn their heads to see who has arrived. Weiss's calm expression instantly shifts to one of dawning, absolute horror. Cynthia and Lilith look on with expressions of surprise and curiosity. Another student remarks on the newcomer's attractiveness, while Weiss trembles in fear. Overcome with terror, Weiss feels his entire vision gradually turning red. The title page reveals the source of his fear. The nightmare returns. The woman introduces herself as Milk Abitos, their new combat training instructor. With a bored and unimpressed expression, she asks if there are any questions. Weiss is shown panting heavily, completely overwhelmed by her sudden presence. Despite his overwhelming fear, he shakily raises his hand to speak. Another student, Duke Billion, cheerfully asks why she is substituting for their class. Terrified but grateful, Weiss internally thanks Duke for asking the question in his place. Duke aggressively questions the new instructor, demanding to know the reason for her sudden appearance. With a look of utter disdain, Milk dismisses his question as pointless and orders him to be quiet. Earlier, Duke had raised his hand enthusiastically, ready to address the new teacher. The entire class watched as Duke stood to question the imposing substitute instructor. A furious Weiss grits his teeth, internally questioning what is wrong with the abrasive woman. An instructor named Chloe begins to explain the real reason for Milk's arrival at the academy. She reveals that many upperclassmen have requested extra combat training since the tag test. The academy's need for additional help led them to hire the formidable Milk Avitas. Weiss understands the upperclassmen are fired up, not wanting to be looked down upon. Milk thinks that hiring her was the academy's biggest mistake, then calls out to Weiss. Her shadowy figure accuses him of thinking something unnecessary, startling him. Weiss panics, wondering how she could possibly know what was on his mind. He quickly stammers that it was nothing, claiming he had just zoned out for a moment. On a rugged mountainside, Milk announces that the training will begin with push-ups. The students are scattered across the terrain, engaged in the grueling physical exercise. Weiss strains with all his might, his face a mask of pure exertion. Milk observes him, noting that his skills seem to have improved in the past few months. A terrible suspicion begins to dawn on Weiss as he continues his exercise. He wonders with dread if she came to the academy just to torment him. Nearby students whisper in shock that the vice president is actually obeying the substitute teacher. Milk's eyes widen with a crazed, intimidating glare, startling a nearby student. She berates two students for their poor running form, calling them idiots. With a contemptuous sneer, she declares that the academy is filled with spoiled brats. Milk announces that everyone must keep climbing the mountain until the sun sets. She then singles out Weiss, ordering him to do push-ups while climbing the mountain. He is shown comically crushed under the weight of her impossible command. With Milk's arrival, combat training became a hellish experience for the students. Everyone, including Alan and Carta, trembled in fear whenever a training day approached. But a glimmer of hope appeared, radiating a bright light. The students learned that even a desert can have an oasis, the academy pool. The male students stand by the water, nervously wondering what she is planning now. A student points across the pool, drawing everyone's attention to an approaching group. Milk shouts a greeting, telling the boys she is sorry to have kept them waiting. The male students stand in tense, bewildered silence, awaiting their instructions. The girls look on, with Carta questioning the situation and Cynthia looking unimpressed. A sharp glint appears in the instructor's eye as she prepares for the lesson. Feet step forward at the pool's edge, ready for action. The pool erupts into a chaotic brawl, with Weiss and Duke screaming at each other. The girls watch in disgust, with Cynthia calling them all stupid brats. A dark-haired boy screams in the midst of the watery pandemonium. The real training is revealed as Cynthia encourages more bouncing on a floating platform. Duke watches in awe, admitting that this skill is just as he expected from Weiss. Weiss expertly uses a long pole to adjust his balance on the platform. His precise movements cause Cynthia to bounce up and down with dynamic grace. The bouncing motion is emphasized with a large, bowing sound effect. The onlooking boys declare that only the top-ranked first year could perform such a godlike technique. Cynthia loses her balance, letting out a small cry as she begins to fall. She lands in the water with a huge splash, her pole flying through the air. Duke showers Weiss with praise, calling him amazing and admitting he was wrong about him. The girls collectively agree that boys are the worst and that Weiss is a scumbag. A smug Weiss turns to the crowd, asking who wants to be next. A new challenger emerges from the water's edge, holding a menacing spiked club. With a sweet but terrifying smile, Milk announces that it is her turn. Weiss begs her to wait, insisting that he is already done with the exercise. He cries out that he is seriously sick and tired of this same recurring punchline. The pool explodes in chaos as everyone is sent flying into the water. Because the instructor got fed up with their antics, water training was never conducted again. In the dining hall, a well-prepared meal sits on a tray. A student recognizes Carta eating her meal at a table. Two girls approach, mockingly noting that she is, as always, eating by herself. Carta explains that Weiss is with Cynthia, so she didn't want to intrude. She admits she thought she would just get in the way if she joined them. A bully reminds her that she and Weiss were only partners for the tag team event. She condescendingly tells Carta to thank Weiss, as she only avoided expulsion by leeching off him. Carta looks down, her expression filled with shame and sadness. A student glares in anger at the bullies across the hall. Two girls watch the confrontation from another table, angered by the bully's words. The bully calls Carta a damn parasite, saying she only survives by clinging to someone stronger. They threaten to get her expelled now that Weiss is no longer by her side. A new group of girls, including Cynthia and Lilith, approaches with their own trays. One of them calls out to Carta, getting her attention. Carta's eyes widen in terror at the sight of the high-ranking students. Cynthia and Lilith ask if it would be okay for them to eat with her. Carta panics, thinking that one problem has just been replaced by a new one. She sits rigidly at the table with the intimidating group of girls. Lilith addresses Carta by her name, breaking the tense silence. She tells Carta that she has reconsidered her opinion of her. She brings up their performance in the recent joint tag team exam. Lilith reveals she knows they defeated 24 students, including upperclassmen. Cynthia agrees it's a record-breaking number, while Carta insists Weiss did it all himself. Lilith disagrees, stating that even Weiss couldn't have done it all alone. She asserts that Carta's flight magic and impressive abilities made that score possible. Cynthia admits that it frustrates her, but she and Lilith were completely defeated by their teamwork. She then humbly asks Carta to please continue looking after Weiss from now on. Carta is visibly moved, a blush of gratitude and surprise on her face. Cynthia asks why Carta keeps avoiding them, saying they've wanted to talk for a while. Overwhelmed, Carta stammers that is just because she feels intimidated by them. Cynthia sighs but then softens her expression, dismissing Carta's worries. The group declares that from now on, they will all get along together. A happy, tearful Carta agrees, her face filled with warmth and relief. Cynthia complains loudly that her food is now frozen solid. The girls suddenly wonder where Weiss is, as he is not with them. The scene reveals Weiss lying in a bed, his entire body wrapped in bandages. He weakly asks Milk to heal him, but she cheerfully refuses. A flashback shows Carta, empowered by her training, ready to confront her bullies. She successfully got them expelled, and they are seen